It is now my esteemed pleasure to bring on from Clever Leaves, CEO Kyle Detwiler. Kyle, come on out. Let's get a big round of applause for Kyle. All right, take it away, Kyle.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everyone, or as we might say at Clever Leaves, bom dia. I'm excited to tell you about what we're building at Clever Leaves. And to start this story, Clever Leaves was really built with a very simple idea in mind, and that is that cannabis production facilities were not first built in places where it made economic or environmental sense. They were built where it was first legal. And that creates an opportunity for a global scaled platform to disrupt that sector by bringing low-cost pharmaceutical-grade cannabis to the global markets. So what is Clever Leaves? Clever Leaves derives one of its main competitive advantages of 14 cents per gram of cultivation production by locating its cultivation in places like Colombia and Portugal. We have approximately $57 million of cash on our balance sheet, which allows us to let this call option play out and have a very sustainable and durable business plan. Our cultivation cost advantages also come from our scale. With nearly 1.8 million square feet of production in the country of Colombia and another 100,000 in Portugal, as a single company, Clever Leaves also has been awarded approximately half of the quota to produce psychoactive cannabis in the country of Colombia. And when you dial that back to the United Nations level, that's nearly 18% of the global cannabis quota. So as a single company, that's a pretty potent advantage. Clever Leaves is the only company in the world with a European GMP certification and a VIMA GMP certification, a GACP certification for its cultivation in Colombia. So important is this that we've been deemed a project of strategic and national importance by the country of Colombia. So in the United States or Canada, where brands are defined by celebrities or great retail locations or some nifty marketing, in the international pharmaceutical industry, the equivalent for Snoop Dogg is European GMP certification, and we are the only company that is focused on the cannabis sector in Latin America that has that. We believe we also very well positioned for the future of cannabis. When the walls fall, internationally or in the United States, you're going to want to be part of a platform that benefits from that as opposed to a company that gets hurt by that. And so to help with our entry in the United States, other than shipping what I believe may in fact be the first commercial sale of THC produced outside the United States but sold in the United States, we also have a U.S. nutraceutical operation called Herbal Brands, which is a bit of a Trojan horse entry to a CBD strategy we'll be launching soon. I won't go through all of these, particular accomplishments, but among the more recent developments in the company's life, we have sold THC in the United States, something I think most people doubted would ever be possible under the Controlled Substances Act. We've done it legally and maintained our NASDAQ listing. We have brought online our Portuguese facility in the last couple months, and Colombia has changed their rules around the production of cannabis. It used to be, since the inception of the program in 2016, we can only sell extracts, isolates, and distillates, and now we will be able to export flower. So the sleeping giant of the cannabis industry is gradually being awoken. So we define ourselves as a multinational operator, and the things and the trends that drive Clever Leaves are very different from probably most cannabis companies out there. For one, we are a B2B focused company. It's hard enough to grow it, extract it, distribute it, process it, retail it, and brand it, maybe even market it. We try to focus on cultivation and extraction and be a B2B solution to some of the world's largest cannabis companies or pharmaceutical companies like Canopy Growth or Ethypharm in Europe. Our business model is not defined by a single geography. If France legalizes a commercial market tomorrow, we don't have to go build a new operating center in France, like an MSO who might have to build a new center if they want a license in Florida and one in New York or one in Ohio. We simply build 2 more greenhouses next to the other 18 we already have. It's a scaled industrial vision of what the future holds. I also believe, because of our NASDAQ listing, the fact that we don't have to deal with 280E taxes, we are a more financeable business in the long run as well. And most importantly, I believe that we will benefit from legalization. A lot of cannabis companies depend on barriers to entry at state borders or at international boundaries. If you believe, like me, in capitalism and Adam Smith's invisible hand, these walls will fall eventually, and they will expose a number of businesses to competition from large-scale producers such as Clever Leaves. So an overview of our facility, I think we are best known for our Colombian operation, 1.8 million square feet, the continent's only EU GMP certification that took us 5 years to obtain. In Portugal, we have 9 million square feet of land, 100,000 square feet of greenhouse, and that began as a flower production center for us. That's why we have 2 operating sites. So we've proven to the world that we can produce at scale, produce at low cost, produce at high quality. The real question now is how can we get this product out? And I'll talk to you a little bit about our distribution partners in Brazil and Latin America, some of ours in Germany, and of course I mentioned our US nutraceutical business that we fully own. So if you've been to a greenhouse in Southern California that probably grows cannabis today, you should ask them what it used to grow here 30 years ago. And the Pasadena Rose Day Parade, the history of rose production in the Central Valley of California is gone. And where did it move? It went to places like Colombia. So Colombia today represents actually 7 in 10 cut flower imports to the United States. And this 12-hour sunlight, 12-hour darkness environment is perfect for flowers, a very good analog for cannabis. And so in my background, I spent most of my career investing in healthcare, largely pharmaceuticals, which are all getting shifted to production in Southeast Asia. And I've also spent a lot of that in the ag and natural resource space, where you can get hydrocarbons out of the tar sands of Canada, but it's terrible for the environment and it's much more expensive. You can manufacture in the United States. There might be some very good reasons to do so. But if you're looking for a cost advantage, you can get a 5x arbitrage by going to a place like China. And in cannabis, where we are competing against production facilities built where it literally snows, we have a 9 times cost advantage. This is a long-winded way of saying you will not be producing in those kind of infrastructure environments over the long term. Under US GAAP, PCAOB audit numbers historically realized in 2020, so this is not made up, these are not estimates, Clever Leaves produced its cultivation and extracted products at 14 cents per gram. That compares to the peer average in Canada of over $2 per gram. Most people think that just comes from lower cost labor, but no, this is what we get when we produce where God intended cannabis probably to be grown. We have the perfect weather, and we also have a 8,300 feet elevation cultivation facility that eliminates pests. Why is that important? Well, if you studied blueberries and asparagus like I have, you can typically do this in different environments, but in cannabis, you can't use pesticides, can't use herbicides. So that elevation is another strategic advantage. It surprises most people to learn that Clever Leaves is already one of the largest producers of cannabis on earth. It's also surprising to most people to learn that we are one of the largest extractors on earth, with the capability to extract approximately 100,000 kg per year of biomass. A lot of people ask, what is EU GMP certification, Kyle? Why is it so important? Well, I'll talk a little bit about Germany, talk about Brazil, and talk about Australia. But the first thing you need to understand is in those markets, you have to forget everything you've learned about US and Canadian cannabis. Those markets function truly pharmaceutical. They are physician prescribed. Therefore, they are sold typically at pharmacies. And just because cannabis is a new industry does not mean agencies like Anvisa in Brazil or the Bee Farm in Germany give you a free pass. One of the things that a pharmaceutical ingredient producer must obtain is the famous EU GMP certification. There are 3 cannabis companies in the world, by the way I measure it, who have a vertically integrated operation for cultivation and extraction. Our peers in that category are Tilray and Aurora. In fact, this GMP certification unlocks higher pricing because of the scarcity value, but it gives you access. If you do not have an EU GMP certified product, you will not sell a product in Germany. This is just a quick, photo of our Colombian production facility. This is one of the largest single-site cannabis production facilities on earth. If that's not big enough, we have a 73 million square feet lot of land that we've secured under a purchase option, which would be 5 times larger than all of the Canadian LPs combined, if we should so desire to go outdoor. We haven't activated the site yet, but I think it gives you a vision for where we at Clever Leaves think this industry will go over the next few years. You're looking at the only EU GMP certified extraction facility in Colombia. This has been a very valuable site for the development of a unique cadre of products. And so we're very excited to have developed this project. For people kind of curious about this, there's only one other EU GMP certified company in Colombia at all, and that is Colombia's largest pharmaceutical contract manufacturer. Across the pond, we also have Portugal. Portugal was started about 2 years ago organically. We acquired an old berry operation from a KKR portfolio company. And today we have about 110,000 square feet of greenhouse. We are about to complete an expansion to about 260,000 square feet. In our 6th or 7th harvest, we have kind of done what is the necessary feat. We are producing strains that exceed 20% THC levels. People said it couldn't be done in a poly greenhouse. We begged to differ. We said we could do it in a low-cost manner. We can keep the quality, and we can still give the patient the quality they desire. This facility is GACP certified today. That's important because that's a requirement, for countries like Israel and Australia, and we believe we will secure an EU GMP certification for this facility sometime next year. For people unfamiliar with the cannabis operators in places like Latin America, we think this slide helps kind of illustrate some of the key differences. So from a production standpoint, I believe we are the biggest. We are the only EU GMP certified operation. We have a significant THC quota for producing psychoactive cannabinoids. We have a flower production site, which is more valuable now because Colombia has changed its laws, allowing the export of flower, because for 2 years, we've been working with clients, we've been building relationships, we're figuring out the kinks for shipping pharmaceutical cannabis into Europe, dealing with strain management. It's a very important skill set that will only become more valuable as Colombia turns on for flower sometime soon. We also have a US operation, which is a pretty critical differentiator. So if you're trying to card count, I know a lot of this will be out at MJ Biz next week, but in the cannabis industry, we have selected and intentionally focused on markets that others have neglected. I think it surprises most people to think about Europe and Brazil as a market that has 1 billion possible patients. It's a federally legal structure, meaning we can compete there, and it will be difficult for others to do so. But the startup costs in this industry are extraordinarily high. I sort of think that most people do not recognize the value of Clever Leaves, and they won't recognize it for maybe another year or two. But when they do, they will realize that it took us 5 to 7 years to get to that point in time. And so as you think about how easy it is to copycat this strategy, I mean, $250 million raised, 5 to 7 years of development, that's a very difficult bar to surpass. It's also interesting for most people to learn that the production of cannabis is prohibited in the country of Brazil. So as people debate whether imports will, exist in this industry, categorically they are required in a country like Brazil. And the pricing, therefore, in these markets is robust. It surprises most people to learn that the pricing for cannabis in a pharmacy in Germany could exceed 22 USD per gram compared to an average in the US of 5. Even in Brazil, where you might leap to an assumption that it might be a low-cost market because of purchasing power differences, the average price for CBD-dominant products today can still exceed $4 a gram. So thinking quickly about Germany, I probably can't cover too much of this, but just remember that this market is at the very infancy of its growth. We were talking about 1 in 1,000 people in Germany having access to medical cannabis. It is a supply-constrained market, and it is very, very difficult to penetrate. One of the ways that Clever Leaves has differentiated itself is rather than going to market exclusively on our own brands, we have partnered with one of the largest pharmaceutical companies focused on the central nervous space in Europe called Ethypharm. That is a private equity-backed company, and we are their chosen source of supply, even though Ethypharm could have partnered and has partnered historically in other geographies with other cannabis companies before we really got to market. Brazil is really also an interesting story, and the more you learn about Brazil, the more you will understand how valuable Clever Leaves can be for this market of 210 million patients. As I mentioned earlier, production of cannabis is prohibited in Brazil, so there is no domestic alternative source. It's a pharmaceutically focused market, therefore you must have a GMP certification as the new era of regulation phases into Brazil. You also have to do what's called the Zone 4B stability test, which has to be done on what they call a non-accelerated basis. That's a fancy pharmaceutical word for saying that you have demonstrated a shelf life in the unique temperature and humidity conditions for the country of Brazil, and it is essential to register your product. So I will challenge you to find other companies that will be better positioned than Clever Leaves. Very quickly, this is our part of our U.S. penetration strategy. This was a family-run company that we acquired back in 2019. It sells to some great retail locations such as GNC, Vitamin Shop, Rite Aid, CVS. Also have a big Amazon business. Perfect launching pad for a CBD brand, which will be coming soon. The United States. Most people thought that the federally legal cannabis available in the United States may only come from one source today, which is the University of Mississippi, and Clever Leaves is trying to change that notion. We began a program, publicly at least, in July, where we announced that we were going to give $25 million worth of cannabinoid product to eligible U.S. researchers and academic institutions. And before you think I'm completely nuts, we have already signed up UC Davis and the University of Missouri, who are excited to take advantage of this a high-quality source of cannabinoids. Furthermore, this is part of a multi-phase approach for our entry into the United States, and it surprised a lot of people, but last week we announced our first commercial sale. This wasn't like the R&D shipments that we've sent into countries like Canada and the United States before. We sold 30 kilograms of high THC flower produced in Portugal to a DEA Schedule I licensed lab, and hopefully you're starting to see the trajectory of where we are going in the United States, which could really upend how most people think about the US market. I will challenge you to find another company outside of North America who has signed up the type of partnerships that we have. Partnered up with large pharma like Ethypharm. We've historically done work with Canopy in Latin America, and in each of these new geographies, Mexico, Israel, Australia, we're proud to announce new partners, and we will continue to scale these partnerships up over time. I'm very blessed with a great leadership team. I grew up in the private equity industry at KKR and the Blackstone Group. In the audience today is our CFO, Hank Hague, who was the CFO of a CBD startup company called Abacus, which was successfully sold to Charlotte's Web. One of our co-founders and president, Andres Fajardo, was a Booz Allen consultant in CPG for nearly a decade, then ran a private equity-backed healthcare company in Colombia. So we have a very all-star team. And as people think about how is Clever Leaves accomplishing these milestones in the United States, it really helps to have former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle on our advisory board. Clever Leaves is a leader in low-cost production of cannabinoids. We have a thoughtfully produced B2B strategy. We are one of the few pharmaceutical producers with an EU GMP certification on Earth, and that positions us very well for the future of this industry. We have a very talented management team. We have a very robust balance sheet. And as a NASDAQ listed company with US GAAP financials, it's a very clean and easy to understand story. So I appreciate everybody coming today. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be delighted to take one or two.
Come on, guys. I know it's early. Who's got questions?
Good morning. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. I'd love your thoughts on biosynthetic cannabinoids. I know that the efficacy is not as good as the plant, but as that research technology progresses, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, as disruptive as the Clever Leaves story is to botanical cannabinoid production, I think we always have to be thinking about synthetic production. And biosynthetic is one source, chemically synthetic is another source. So we're definitely watching the market. It's been tough for most companies to scale that up at this point. And there's, I think, this misnomer out there that synthetically produced cannabis is somehow better or more pure. And that's simply not the case. We can get our botanically produced product to, the 99.9% purity levels as other synthetics. The only FDA-approved drugs that have really scaled in cannabis are not produced with synthetics, right? They're produced with botanical product. I also think if you think about where the consumer is going in the world, I remember when Cronos first announced his partnership with Ginkgo, they talked a lot about how, the biosyn play around rose oil really changed the game. If you look into the rose oil industry to the next layer, you find out that botanically produced rose oil actually garners a 20% price premium to the synthetically produced product. So in the end, I don't think we're going to have a winner-take-all model. I think there will be a combination of synthetics, chemically, biosynthetically produced, and I think there'll be botanical producers. I think we have a better story to spin around the botanical side, but we welcome growth in the market of any kind. So I think those are our quick thoughts on synthetics.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Any more questions while we have him on the stage? All right, Kyle, any closing remarks?
No, we're excited. Thanks for all our support from our shareholders that might be here. It's been an exciting journey, and we still got a lot more to do.
Beautifully stated. All right, everyone give it up for Kyle. Clever Leaves.